They were built to strike fear, but these fighter jets ended up sparking tragedy and doubt instead. In the race for global dominance, nations have poured billions into building and perfecting the ultimate flying weapons of war. Especially in the context of modern warfare, air superiority remains a key factor in determining battlefield success. From the simple biplanes of World War I to supersonic, ultra-maneuverable, stealth-capable fighter jets, military planes have been a constantly evolving concept. These deadly engineering marvels are meant to send a chilling message to adversaries. They don't just dominate the air, they project power, intimidation, and control, and often decide the outcome of conflicts with a single, well-placed strike. But while some jets have soared high as pioneers of their time, others have crashed, burned, or failed to take off in more ways than one. The result? Their creators were left embarrassed, in debt, and haunted by unnecessary loss of life. Their dream was to create a jet faster, deadlier, and more advanced. Yet ambition often outpaced capability, and instead of triumph, these jets became notorious for their failures. Today we're counting down the top 5 worst fighter jets in military aviation history. Jets that serve as reminders of how even the best intentions can lead to spectacular misfires. Not every jet achieves legendary status. Some fall short, embarrassingly so. If you're passionate about uncovering these stories, make sure to subscribe for deep dives, rare insights, and everything in between. Let's get started. Number 1. Yakovlev Yak-38. It was the Cold War, and the Soviets were trying hard to stay ahead of the West in terms of military advancements and technological reforms. In 1967, the British introduced their top-of-the-line jump jet, Harrier GR-1, to the market. The first V-STOL ever, Harrier was well received by the world. The Soviets naturally scrambled to build a worthy rival. Their answer was the Yakovlev Yak-38. However, instead of challenging its competitors, the Yak-38 could not overcome its own shortcomings. Harrier was able to operate with minimal ground facilities and very short runways, thanks to its V-STOL design. But the Yak-38, on the other hand, never really took off, at least not in the way it was intended to. The flaw wasn't in the engineering or design, rather the main problem was the integration of an overly complex propulsion system. It had a total of 3 engines, 1 at the back and 2 lift turbofans on the front. Such engine placement made the jet extremely tricky to maneuver. If one of the lift engines were damaged or failed, the pilots were almost guaranteed to lose control. Another problem arose during operations in Afghanistan. The jet engines were extremely sensitive to dirt and dust, so when the turbofans threw huge clouds of dirt in the air, it clogged the engine's critical ports and vents. That often resulted in engine failure and nightmares for on-duty pilots. It also didn't fare well in extreme heat. The Yak-38 was also a tactical failure, with just 4 hardpoints and an operational range limited to just 320 kilometers. It also lacked a proper radar system and could not be used more effectively in fleet defense. All in all, Yakovlev Yak-38 was nothing like its competitor and was quickly abandoned as the Soviet Union fell. Number 2. Heinkel HE-162. Next up, we have the Heinkel HE-162, also known as the Volksjäger, or People's Fighter. It was a German jet that represented the desperation of Nazi Germany toward the end of World War II. But this hadn't always been the case. Germany had produced some of the best combat aircraft throughout the World War II period. However, a long war and relentless destruction of its industries had its toll on the German economy. The Nazis were depleted of money, manpower, and resources. So to keep its air force operational, they produced the Heinkel HE-162. This fighter jet was made mostly out of wood by semi-skilled labor as a last-ditch attempt. From ideation to designing to mass production and flight, the whole process took only 90 days. Such hasty production laid the ground for numerous flaws and structural failures. A wooden structure meant the aircraft was fragile and prone to cracks and damage, especially at high speeds. The first prototype lost a wing on its second flight. Many of the aircraft broke down mid-flight. It was also notable for its small size and had a distinctive top-mounted engine. Such unconventional engine placement made it prone to wear and tear and overheating. This design choice also created unwanted turbulence. In addition, it left little room for fuel, which combined with the inefficient engine resulted in many crashes off the field. The jet also only had room for 2 autocannon, making it relatively underarmed for the era. A series of fatal accidents during testing tarnished the reputation of the jet further. Designed for minimally trained Hitler youth, the aircraft was quite dangerous to fly. Even extremely skilled and seasoned pilots had a hard time maneuvering this specific fighter jet. Other problems were noted as well, notably pitch instability and problems with side slip due to the rudder design. In the end, Henkel HE-162 never had a chance to make a difference in the war. Although about 320 units were produced, only a few were operational by the time the war ended, and even fewer making it into active combat. HE-162 is the prime example of how the rush to develop military technology in a crisis can result in a jet that's more dangerous to its own pilots rather than the enemy. Number 3. Vought F-7U Cutlass. The next entry on this list is the Vought F-7U Cutlass. Intended to be a high-performance tailless fighter with swept wings and advanced design, the Cutlass seemed like it would push aviation boundaries, but instead, it fumbled its way into oblivion. The jet was hampered by chronic engine issues, with them being not only underpowered, but also highly unreliable. These engines struggled to generate enough thrust, making even basic maneuvers like takeoffs and landings a gamble and putting pilots at constant risk. The jet's hydraulic systems proved to be highly unreliable. Hydraulic failures were alarmingly frequent, leading to critical control issues mid-flight. This made already risky maneuvers even more dangerous, as pilots often had little or no warning before losing control. Handling the Cutlass was equally difficult. Its unconventional tailless design, while visually striking, proved problematic, especially at low speeds. Pilots frequently reported that the jet was unstable and prone to stalling, with controls that felt heavy and unresponsive. This poor handling made it exceptionally challenging to operate, even for seasoned pilots, and contributed to its high accident rate. Structural weaknesses also compounded these issues. The Cutlass's airframe was prone to metal fatigue, leading to dangerous vibrations that often resulted in mid-flight failures. This fragility added to the jet's already tarnished reputation. With nearly 25% of all Cutlasses involved in accidents, the jet quickly earned the grim nickname, Gutless Cutlass. It claimed multiple lives and became one of the Navy's most hated fighter jets, ultimately leading to its early retirement. The F-7U stands as a reminder of the risks of experimental designs that prioritize innovation over reliability. Instead of soaring as a marvel of military aviation, it became a cautionary tale of hubris and flawed execution. Number 4. De Havilland Sea Vixen. Moving on, we have the de Havilland Sea Vixen. It was a British twin-engine, twin-boom fighter aircraft with a rather unconventional design. It featured an offset cockpit and extended fuel capacity in its unique tail structure. The Sea Vixen had the distinction of being the first British two-seat combat aircraft to achieve supersonic speed. On 26 September 1951, an initial prototype was completed and was flown by the test pilot John Cunningham. Early flight tests of the prototype demonstrated that the aircraft's performance exceeded expectations. By the following year, the prototype was regularly flying in excess of the speed of sound. So what made it such a tragic failure? Its fatal limitations became apparent when the first prototype was demonstrated at the Farnborough Air Show on 6 September 1952. In an attempt to achieve the supersonic speed at low-level flight, the aircraft disintegrated and debris landed in the midst of spectators, killing 31 people, including the flight crew. In terms of offense, the plane was also severely handicapped. The de Havilland Sea Vixen struggled with an outdated weapons system and carried only 4 air-to-air missiles, which limited its firepower on the battlefield. The Sea Vixen's unusual cockpit arrangement severely restricted visibility and communication. This made coordination between the two roles challenging, especially in high-stakes situations like carrier landings, where precision and quick responses were essential. 55 of the 145 Sea Vixens built were lost in accidents, with 30 of those resulting in loss of life. Additionally, modifications made to increase the Sea Vixen's fuel capacity further compromised its performance. The extended fuel tanks added significant weight, impacting maneuverability and stability, particularly during carrier operations. It also increased strain on its hydraulic systems and overall structure. These structural and operational issues, coupled with the aircraft's limited combat experience, meant that the Sea Vixen never fully lived up to its potential. Ultimately, the Royal Navy opted to retire it in favor of more modern, versatile aircraft capable of meeting the increasing demands of naval aviation. Number 5. Convair F-102 Delta Dagger. Last but not least, we have the Convair F-102 Delta Dagger. It was the first operational supersonic interceptor and delta wing fighter operated by the U.S. Air Force. Entering service in 1956, problems arose immediately. The prototype YF-102 performed its maiden flight. However, it was destroyed only 9 days later. None of the initial 1,000 F-102s, designed to be high-speed aircraft, reached Mach 1. The F-102's transonic drag was much higher than expected, preventing it from reaching Mach 1 in level flight. The fuselage was redesigned to address this issue. However, the redesign gave birth to many other flaws and structural defects. The Air Force didn't apply uniform fixes to the F-102 fleet, so different aircraft had different capabilities. Its weapon system was another point of contention. Equipped with limited capacity of only 6 air-to-air missiles, the F-102 lacked flexibility in missions like ground attacks. During the Vietnam War, it was assigned to escort B-52 bombers, but proved vulnerable to enemy MiGs due to its less responsive handling and limited agility. A lack of visibility in its cockpit also posed a problem, as it compromised situational awareness, an essential feature for interceptors operating in dynamic combat zones. 259 of the 1,000 F-102s produced were lost in accidents. At least in 70 of these, the pilots were also killed. These jets did not change aviation history as intended. Instead, they became cautionary tales of what can go wrong when innovation takes a nosedive. From design flaws to operational struggles, these fighter jets served as reminders of the risks involved in pushing aviation boundaries. Is there a fighter jet you think deserves a spot on this list? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to also subscribe and press the bell icon so you can remain notified of our latest videos on aviation history.